So what kind of new governance? So the one that encourage experimentation and innovation, as I already mentioned. So to protect and encourage spaces for technical and social innovations and experimentations, so that we can create a good variety of options, so that we can fall back and choose from these options. Also, these solutions can be employed after the crisis. It can become a new normal. For example, we are doing now the teleconferencing, right? So even after pandemics, I think a lot of organizations will still use teleconferencing, and a lot of universities will use online education and so on. So these have the potential to become from the niche to the new normal. Not only technology, but also the city management, governance, like the decision process can also be innovated. So for example, we can encourage stakeholder engagement. This is not a new notion. It was known long time before, but still. So what is stakeholder engagement? It's kind of encouraging discussions and active communication between a wide range of urban actors, such as academia, business, NGOs, residents, and so on. So of course, we can use hints from those discussions to better inform the decision-making process for better decisions, which means better policies, which means better crisis response. Maybe it sounds a little bit abstract, so I will try to explain it on the simple case. This comes from my research, actually, from Kitakyushu City, which is the north Honshu Island. And this city is known as kind of like a sustainable city in Japan, and they experiment a lot with different sustainability solutions. So one initiative they have is the so-called Kitakyushu SDG Club, a platform for exchange and matching among broad range of stakeholders. So everyone can participate, and actually I also signed up. And so as you see, citizens, NPOs, companies, schools, all they can gather and participate in one place. And during the onset of the COVID-19 epidemic, I actually received an email from Kitakyushu SDG Club, which basically invited me to, and every participant to share our experiences. How are we dealing with the pandemic? So what kind of social distancing measures do we implement at our workplace or at home? Maybe you have any other solutions and recommendations. So they gathered all this information from all the participants. For example, this is one of the restaurants. They show how they divide the space, implement social distancing. This is another company that provides the webinar of how to deal with COVID. Another company that shows like how they implement kind of like a barriers, and kind of like a souvenir shop that shares the recipe of how to make the masks. So people share their solutions, and this organization, they consolidated all these solutions, and they disseminated it to all the participants so that they can learn from it. So I think this one of the interesting kind of innovations in this city is because, I don't know, for example, in Moscow, nobody ever asked me how should I, like the city of Moscow never asked me how do we need to deal with the pandemic, for example. So it's kind of interesting. Also, I think that we saw that the international supply chains are disrupted due to crisis. So the importance of the local self-sufficiency become even more clear. So the cities, they should become more resilient in a sense. So they should be able to withstand the problems. And let's think about some thought experiment. So we all seen that these shortages of toilet paper, right? What if it was not a toilet paper, but shortages of rice? So actually, this is the picture from the local supermarket. There is no spaghetti there. And I noticed that like it's for 2 months, and there was no spaghetti at all. But what would happen if it was rice, for example? How would people feel? I think it would be quite stressful for them. So what if Japan didn't grow rice domestically, right? So this raises the questions of the importance of the self-sufficiency and also the so-called regional revitalization. So in Japan, this is a big problem because they have the aging society, people migrate to big cities, while the regions are facing with the decline, regional decline. So they have certain policies such as ensuring the local energy base, creating local jobs, and so on. So this local regional revitalization is also important for cities. Finally, there is also an exacerbated inequality gap. So COVID-19 crisis really showed that despite the virus itself doesn't care about who to infect, the economically vulnerable people are of course much more likely to suffer disproportionately. And actually self-isolation is of course a privilege, which is not available for most people. So for example, this picture shows the slums and the gated community close to it. So of course, rising inequality also contribute to social and political instabilities, cause uprisings, and which in turn worsen the epidemiological situation in a vicious cycle. So probably what we need to do is to kind of put the good ideals of the SDGs to the heart of the global state and urban governance. Of course, this is not a simple thing to do, but yeah. So I want to conclude with this notion. So in Japan in 2011, there was a huge earthquake and tsunami and Fukushima disaster. And after that, Japan implemented the so-called Build Back Better policy. So they wanted to rebuild the city that suffered the most, but also they wanted to rebuild them better with sustainability issues in mind. So in this crisis, I think what we need to do, we don't need to build back better because we don't have a lot of physical damage, but probably we need to manage or govern better. And the so-called green recovery. It can be short-term, so it has to deal with the short-term issues such as prevent infection escalation, support healthcare system, address medical waste issues, but also it needs to take into account the midterm and long-term, such as recover to more resilient and sustainable society, innovate our governance, encourage stakeholder participation, and restore the economy with green solutions supplied with green jobs. Basically, we need to learn the lessons from this crisis. So thank you very much for your attention, and this is the slide with my references.
Well, thank you very much, Fedor, for this very comprehensive presentation. You touched on many issues, and as already mentioned in the previous presentation, so the crisis also presents an opportunity.
Yeah.
In your presentation, you had this window of opportunity, which is a very nice concept. I like it very much. So this is something really that we should discuss during the next session, the discussion session.